Hi, my name is Jorge Guerra Pires. Right now I'm a PhD student in University of L'Aquila and I'm working with a mathematical model for ghrelin. Ghrelin is a quite important hormone that was discovered in 1999, which was discovered, as far as the reference says, it was discovered by Japanese scientists, but was mainly spread out by British scientists. Nowadays it is a quite important hormone. People has been studied a lot from several point of view. Nonetheless, the eminent one, the notorious one, is ghrelin as an appetite and homeostasis regulator. And it was found other functions as well, but this is the function that the sign of ghrelin that I'm interested in. On this video, we are going to discuss this version. In this part of the video, we are going to discuss just the abstract of a paper that I have sent to publication. The paper has not been yet accepted, and I believe that by publishing this video, I run the risk to have some problem with the publication. But since it has been for a long time that I sent the paper and no one sent me a feedback, and I need the information inside the paper because it's part of my research, so I cannot keep this research and I cannot keep this content, this information locked up. So here on this video I'm going to discuss just the abstract, and I'm planning to come back in another version of the video with the content of the paper. So I hope that this video could benefit me or if somebody else with the information. So basically this structure I'm using here was mandatory in the publication of the paper. I had to follow that. It was not a choice, but it's a very nice way to organize the abstract. It's not very common, but it's a nice way because you need to put some standard information in the abstract. So the first point they ask you to put the abstract is the aim of the work. So the paper itself is as you can see from the title here, it is a review, but it's not a big review. It's a review biased by mathematical model. I believe this kind of review is not very common in the literature. In general, people do not publish this kind of review in a separate paper. They generally they put this kind of review inside the paper of for the kind of mathematical model. In general, the researcher will include this mini review, this small review, the short crash review inside the paper about the mathematical model. However, I have decided to publish the review independently, motivated by the fact that I believe that we as a biomathematician, it is something that I'm planning to defend in my. I have a project right now that I'm working in a mathematical model. A mathematical model for not mathematical model, sorry, in a course, in a short course about mathematical model, biomathematical model for someone that could be interested in to work with biomechanics. So the kind of idea that I'm using here that defend as well in the short course that we need to make biomechanics more general in such a way that people, independent of the background, they can criticize your work. It's not what I see right now. So by separating the review from the mathematical model, I wanted to give the opportunity for a doctor, for a biologist, for anyone that will be interested to criticize the work without necessarily to get lost into mathematical formula. So someone can criticize the cornerstone, the base, the pillar of the model without necessarily swim into a huge amount of confusing and even very boring mathematical model. I believe that we have a tendency nowadays called the software architecture, which is a tendency in computer science, which we as a mathematician in general need to learn how to do that. Basically, software architecture tell you that you should build software in such a way that people can easily learn how to use it. They do not have to be expertise on that to use it. And that was a very big movement in computer science that's been working a lot. So if you see the software now, they are much easier to work than it was in the past. So basically, I believe that that's what I would like to see in the future as a researcher of biomathematics. I would like to see models and ideas presented in such a way that people do not need to know mathematics in order to criticize. You should be able to criticize a work independently of the math. Math is supposed not to be a way to hide from the public. As I believe several mathematicians they do that. They use mathematics in a very complicated way that people cannot criticize. It's that Albert Einstein, German scientist which has the Jewish origin, he used to say that mathematicians were more worried about to show how brilliant they were than really solving a problem. So I believe it has not changed a lot. So mathematicians are very worried to show how wonderful they are, but not to solve the problem. So I will not get into this kind of discussion because it's a very polemic one, and there's always a point of view behind. It's not very easy to talk. So the aim of the work is produced a mini review on ghrelin as a rectogenic hormone. Rectogenic means that it is a appetite stimulant. It means that it increases appetite. Ironically, ghrelin is the only hormone so far known that increase appetite. All the other hormones are anorexigenic. That is, they decrease appetite, such as insulin and leptin, which are the two other hormones that I'm going to include on my discussion. So basically, I have been studying literature of ghrelin for a while, and I found that there is a huge tendency to cite or to use a classical graph that you can find in literature. The graph is more or less like this. It's not the only one about ghrelin, but it's a classic one. You have ghrelin, then goes up, then goes up, then goes up, then you have here night, and here you have the period in which you sleep. You have a peak here about 2 o'clock in the morning. People go to sleep about 10. Here is the breakfast. Here is the lunch, and here is the dinner. So every time someone eats, the ghrelin goes down. However, we have some kind of a nice behavior, such as which you have formalized by what I call laws of ghrelin dynamics, and it has as well called the sub laws and the weak laws. The laws, for me, they are very strong evidence in the literature. They are things that have not been criticized by people. They are very evident, such as I call the Zille's law, which is not here, but it's in the figure. The Zille's law is an analogy to the Zille's law of thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, the law, the Zille's law, is a law that give the most important point about the thermodynamic. So it's a very important law. So the Zille's law say basically that the ghrelin falls down after the meal. This point is not criticized in literature, so it's already accepted. So if you do not assume that as true, you cannot go on about mathematical model because it's the most important information that you have. So I have chosen 3 laws. You might ask me why 3 laws. Initially, what number? I think it was nice to have 3 laws. It has like the 3 laws of Newton, the 3 laws of Kepler, and 3 laws of thermodynamics, and so on. 3 seems to be a good number, and it was a good number because the 3 laws, I believe for me they are very important for the models, and that's what I have applied to the current model that I'm going to present in 2 days to my research group. So the 2 aims should serve as well an ongoing mathematical model, which is the one I'm going to present in 2 days. I'm going to present to my research group. So the ghrelin dynamics, it's what I like to call it. It's not a standard in literature to call ghrelin dynamics. It's a mathematical stuff. So you have a dynamics, you have force, you have the speed, and you have so on, and you have velocity and so on. That was the aim of the work. The method. It was applied to two methods: a systematic lateral review for leptin, ghrelin, and also for insulin. I started with leptin. Initially, the idea was to work with leptin as an appetite stimulant, as an appetite controller. I started with a paper about mathematical model of ghrelin, which was of leptin, sorry, which was published a short paper. Then, as I went go on the research, I found ghrelin by accident. And ghrelin was wonderful because leptin, they already have a mathematical model. For ghrelin, they don't have it. And also for insulin. So if you build a mathematical model for ghrelin, as a very good mathematical for ghrelin, we are going to have a very powerful tool, because you have three hormones that is already recognized, is already accepted, unanimous agreement that they have some influence on appetite and metabolism of glucose, on some kind of weight control. So we have three hormones that have a mathematical model for each of them. We are going to have a very powerful tool for understand how the weight change, how glucose is controlled, and so on. So as it was quite normal, as I was making research for leptin, initially it was giving me a challenge, which was called the big glucose model. It is not a work of mine. It was a work developed by the group I'm working right now. It was developed even before me. So initially I didn't know what was exactly that. So when they told me the big glucose model, I came to my mind very simply. It is a attempt to unify all the hormones that we can control the weight and glucose. And of course, if you can find one of my short paper that is available in the social network, and has well sent a version to be published. I call the unification, which is quite similar what happened physically with Albert Einstein, with the guys of quantum mechanics, even before if other scientists tried to make unification in physics, such as Maxwell and so on, Newton itself. So we have a huge. I was able to find a considerable amount of hormone that had indirect or direct influence on the control of glucose. So those are hormones that have somehow they have a contact with glucose. They help to control the glucose, such as cholecystokin, is one example, the CCK. It's interesting to mention that the CCK was initially pointed out as leptin. Leptin was not discovered at that time, so they wanted to understand the central role of CCK on the control of appetite. And as the researcher comment, they found leptin. So leptin was discovered thanks to the researchers that trying to understand cholecystokin or CCK as a very important hormone in the control of appetite. Glucagon was discovered discovered after the start of insulin. It has a opposite effect of insulin. Insulin asks your body to take glucose off the blood, and glucagon asks you to release, to break down the glycogen that you have stored in the fat and in the liver. So that was the first method. The first method was a systematic literature review. By systematic, that word systematic is quite used on when you want to publish a review. They ask you, they generally say that we just accept systematic review. I believe that the name systematic review, it's a very abstract word. For me, systematic means that I have applied a kind of approach, which is not, for me, systematic is the opposite of random. Random means that you select randomly. Systematic means that you applied a kind of approach. Which was approach? The approach was leptin in the big glucose model. So everything that was connected to leptin, it was connected to the glucose itself, I have selected. So the second method was the blackboard discussion, the word style. It was before preceding this paper, it preceded me the mathematical model that I have right now that I'm working on. It was several discussions that you started with Blackboard, and I have prepared slides and discuss. Sometimes it's very boring because the discussion can be very boring, but in the end it was very important for the model. So in one of the meeting, one of my advisors, all of the others agreed as well that we should try to focus on a small number of papers that I have read a lot. So okay, read a lot. So now let's try to choose somehow to select a small number of papers. So I didn't know how to select this paper because every paper seems to be important. So, however, I noticed that some paper they were like the core of the current knowledge. So even the books and so on, the cites kind of paper. So I didn't select the paper based on the number of citation as a number, but the number of citations as a subjective judgment, assessment. So I didn't make the statistic by number. I read a huge amount of work and I observed that paper was cited a lot. So you could even guess that paper would be cited. So that was the 5 papers that have selected. Why 5? It's just a number, right? It's not necessarily the number. So I can even in the future increase this number. That does not mean at all to be 5. 5 is a good number. So the result that I have designed 3 law for gradient dynamics. As I mentioned before, I have proposed as well the zeroth law. The zeroth law is that gradient rise before mu and fall off after that. It's very simple. It's impossible to go on without this information. So the first law is that gradient is produced in 2 parallel independent processes. It's very important. It's called I have called the short term and the long term dynamics. So the short term is mu related and the long term is metabolism related, which is here in this 2 law. So you can say that they are not 3 independent laws. Somehow you can say that they are not independent, but you can say that they are independent. The same way that the laws of Newton. If you take 3 laws of Newton, you can derive the first law is the basic one. The second law of Newton is somehow can be derived for the first and so on. The 3 laws of Kepler, the first law is they are somehow independent, but you can always learn one thing for the other. So the level of independence of law to be called independent law, it's a subjective judgment. So I believe they can be called 3 laws of gradient dynamics, the same way that you can call the 3 laws of Newton the 3 laws of Kepler. So in conclusion, the electoral review produced 3 laws, which honestly I didn't have that in mind. It came to my mind because there is a huge tendency nowadays with areas such as system biology, mathematical biology, to make biology close to physics. And I'm writing a paper right now with a partnership with another professor. And I think that's the kind of stuff to have to try to do, even if our law is still limited. It's not very beautiful as the laws of physics. It's already a good starting point. So I have tested the laws in a mathematical model, a set of ordinary difference equations, and so far I was able to replicate qualitatively, not quantitatively. I was not able to make no system identification, model regression so far, but the behavior is very interesting. So that's what motivated me so far. So in this point we are going to shift to Portuguese. So that was as well one of the requirement of the publication that had also the abstract in Portuguese, because the journal that I have sent is a Brazilian journal. Nesse ponto mudamos para português, falamos fomos parte das exigências do projeto, do artigo. Como discutimos no começo desse vídeo, esse material pertence a um artigo que enviei para publicação. Infelizmente o artigo está demorando a sair o resultado, E ao publicar este vídeo eu estou correndo o risco de perder a publicação ou mesmo ter algum problema com a revista. Espero que não ocorra isso. Infelizmente, esse é um material de pesquisa, atualmente estou faz parte da minha pesquisa, eu não posso correr o risco de manter o material preso na banca com o material que eu realmente preciso de usar no momento, ter como manter o material preso. Basicamente, se você não tem muita familiaridade com o inglês, o título significa grelina, o hormônio de controle de apetite e homeostase e um regulador de homeostase. Uma revisão para o modelo matemático. Basicamente, essa é um tipo de revisão que não é comum na literatura. Geralmente as pessoas quando fazem uma revisão bastante aberta, não é uma revisão pequena. Na verdade, essa é uma revisão bastante curta, uma revisão tendenciosa. A tendência foi o modelo matemático em si. Essa estrutura que eu usei, estou usando aqui, não foi exatamente minha ideia. Realmente, a revista exige que você divida o resumo em sessões. Geralmente não é muito comum, algumas revistas pedem para você não fazer isso, mas essa revista exige que você divida o resumo em sessões. Então, seja, a primeira sessão é objetiva, a segunda é métodos, os resultados e conclusões. Então, ou seja, basicamente o objetivo do trabalho possui dois pontos-chave como objetivo. O primeiro é produzir uma mini revisão tendenciosa ao hormônio grelina como um hormônio orecgênico. O hormônio orecgênico significa que é um hormônio que tem o controle do apetite. Então, ou seja, é um hormônio que aumenta o apetite, aumenta o desejo de se alimentar, de comer. Por mera ironia, a grelina é o único hormônio orecgênico que se conhece no momento. Todos os outros hormônios são anorecgênicos. E de forma interessante, não existem muitos estudos desse modelo do ponto de vista matemático, essas foram as motivações. Muito provavelmente, com certeza, na verdade, esse é o meu trabalho de tese de doutorado, é uma pesquisa que estou fazendo atualmente. Estou no meu último ano, ou seja, não tem como mudar, esse vai ser o trabalho que eu vou até o fim, eu acredito que vou conseguir até o fim, espero que consiga chegar até o fim. Basicamente, esse artigo, que é um artigo que eu expliquei anteriormente, foi um artigo enviado para publicação. Basicamente foi proposta 3 potenciais regras para a dinâmica da grelina, ou seja, na verdade a minha motivação foi trabalhos gerais que eu estou desenvolvendo sobre biologia sistêmica, biomatemática, biologia e matemática. Em geral, hoje temos uma tendência a fazer com que a biologia se aproxime cada vez mais da física e da matemática. Temos trabalhos mais antigos, mas eles são apenas aplicações de física, biologia. Não existe não consigo ver uma tentativa forte em fazer com que realmente ocorra mudança de mentalidade na biologia, apenas fazer com que a biologia seja uma escrava seja dependente da matemática e da física, o que eu acho errado. Devemos mudar a mentalidade em vez de criar uma dependência. E eu fiz o uso desses pilares, dessas leis para trabalhar um modelo matemático que está em construção e que será tópico da minha tese de doutorado. Então, ou seja, métodos. Os métodos foram empregados, 2 métodos. Um foi a pesquisa sistêmica, uma pesquisa da literatura. O outro foi a outra parte foi discussões em quadro negros, apresentações para o grupo de pesquisa que eu trabalho atualmente, e eu vou apresentar o modelo matemático em 2 dias como parte das nossas discussões. O termo biologia é o termo pesquisa sistêmica, ou seja, revisão sistêmica, é um termo bastante usado na literatura, quando se vai publicar em revista, é um termo bastante, na minha opinião, bastante abstrato, não existe exatamente um consenso geral do que é isso. Para mim, pesquisa ou revisão sistêmica é uma pesquisa que você faz usando algum tipo de critério. O meu critério foi a leptina, que foi o hormônio onde a história iniciou, e a palavra-chave, o grande modelo da glicose. O grande modelo da glicose foi um trabalho, foi uma pesquisa proposta para mim pelo meu grupo de pesquisa, né? Ele já trabalhava com isso bem antes de mim. E inicialmente eu estava bastante perdido, que era o grande modelo da glicose. Então, ou seja, a minha condição, quando estamos perdidos, tem que atacar o problema de alguma forma. Eu ataquei o problema da seguinte forma: eu comecei a fazer uma pesquisa geral com todos os hormônios que se estivessem conectados à leptina e conectado à glucose, ao controle de glicose. E no final eu consegui juntar uma quantidade significante de hormônios, colecitoquina, que é o chamado de CCQ, e muitos outros hormônios que tinham alguma influência. E no final eu acabei escolhendo 3 hormônios que eu considerava importantes. Eu escolhi os 3 baseado no fato de que eu estava desenvolvendo um modelo matemático. E leptina tinha um modelo matemático, insulina já estudado matematicamente durante um bom tempo, e só faltava construir um modelo matemático para grelina. Então, ou seja, essa foi a escolha baseada na disponibilidade de literatura e na deficiência da literatura. Discussões em quadro negro foram assim, nós começamos com uma discussão em quadro negro mesmo, depois partimos para algumas apresentações usando slides e muito mais. Então, ou seja, eu tentei ser bastante cuidadoso com a literatura, mas infelizmente existe muita limitação. Eu pessoalmente não identifiquei nenhum artigo, nada falando modelo matemático para grelina. Achei um artigo só, mas o artigo, primeiramente, não foi publicado em uma revista de alto impacto, ou seja, tem uma qualidade duvidosa. O artigo é meio confuso e não usa o tipo de técnicas que eu apresento aqui. Durante as discussões, um dos meus orientadores sugeriu que eu tinha já lido bastante, seria a hora de escolher um número pequeno de artigo. E escolhemos 5 artigos. Por que 5 artigos? Na verdade, apenas um número, não existe um motivo preciso, exato, por que 5 artigos. Então, ou seja, a escolha foi bastante subjetiva, ou seja, o primeiro ponto, ou seja, o artigo apontava algo importante para a pesquisa, e o segundo ponto é que o artigo tivesse uma autonomicitação, só que essa autonomicitação não foi quantificado com números, foi quantificado subjetivamente, ou seja, quando eu li um livro, um artigo, e você observava que aquele artigo específico era citado bastante, então, ou seja, esse artigo é importante. Os resultados, assim, que eu propus derivei assim, de forma, na verdade não foi essa ideia inicial, essa ideia de derivar 3 leis surgiu do nada, ou seja, foi algo que surgiu como parte da minha pesquisa. E por que 3? Na verdade, 3 é um número que tem sido usado muito na literatura. Temos as 3 leis de Newton, as 3 leis de Kepler, as 3 da termodinâmica, e foi uma coisa baseada, não existe um motivo específico. Mas no final acabou sendo bastante interessante, porque 3 leis foi bastante. Foi um número que realmente bateu, na minha opinião. São 3 leis. Alguns podem dizer que elas não são independentes, porque a primeira diz o seguinte, que grelina é produzida em 2 processos paralelos independentes, sendo um de longo prazo e outro de curto prazo. De longo prazo está conectado ao controle do metabolismo, e de curto prazo está conectado à alimentação, ou seja, do dia a dia. E essas leis, na verdade, apenas chegam em mais detalhes sobre cada uma dessas dinâmicas. Mas se você observar as 3 leis de Newton, a primeira lei é a lei básica, a segunda pode, de certa forma, ser usada, pode ser, de certa forma, derivada pela primeira, e assim vai. Ou seja, você tem uma certa relação entre as 3 leis de Newton. As leis de Kepler são um pouco mais independentes, são leis empíricas, leis da termodinâmica também, mas todas as leis, de certa forma, são uma dependência, ou seja, o grau de independência das leis é algo bastante subjetivo e cada um pode aceitar ou não. Ou seja, também propus a lei zero, como tem a lei zero da termodinâmica. A lei zero é a lei básica, ou seja, não tem como você evoluir. A lei zero surgiu muito parecido com a lei zero na termodinâmica, até onde eu sei, as 3 da termodinâmica foram derivadas, de repente alguém descobriu que tinha uma lei muito importante que não tinha sido derivada, e chamada de lei zero, porque não tinha como mudar os números. Foi basicamente isso que aconteceu. Eu derivei as 3 leis, observei que tinha uma lei muito importante que estava faltando aqui nessa lista, e chamei ela de lei zero, porque ela, da mesma forma na termodinâmica, surgiu depois das 3 leis. Como conclusões, ou seja, eu fiz uma análise da literatura, basicamente essas 3 leis nasceram como resultado dessa análise da literatura. Eu apliquei essas leis no modelo matemático. O modelo matemático são um conjunto de equações diferenciais ordinárias e tem alguns resultados interessantes. Eu fui capaz de replicar os resultados da literatura qualitativamente, não quantitativamente, ou seja, identificação de modelos, regressão de modelos, nada disso eu apliquei no momento, porque existem certas limitações. Vamos discutir isso, se tudo der certo, em 2 dias na minha apresentação para o meu grupo de pesquisa.